Welcome to Mamahood After Trauma, where healing and mamahood intersect. I'm Emily, your host. Join us as we discover practical strategies to nurture ourselves with kindness and understanding. Stay tuned for insights and inspiration to support you on your path of healing and growth. Let's dive in together. This is Mamahood After Trauma. Hello, Mama, and welcome to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. I am super excited that you have taken some time out of your busy mama schedule to tune in and listen. Today, I am excited to welcome Michelle Watson. Welcome.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me on, Emily.
Oh, no problem. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. And for any of you who are still on the fence about joining us at the Mamahood After Trauma Symposium, Michelle is one of our amazing speakers. Just to give you a little bit of an insight around who Michelle is, she's an international speaker and business mentor. And she's dedicated to empowering women worldwide. She specializes in guiding women from conception to realization of their business and book ideas. And she leverages her pioneering business incubation process to drive transformation. But that's not all. Michelle has also gone on a healing journey of her own. So let's dive in. Can you share a little bit of your story, like your background story?
Yeah, sure. To keep it as short as possible because it's a lot of twists and turns. But I was born in the UK, went to Jamaica actually on a holiday at the age of 3, and that turned into I guess what, a 16 years holiday because I came back when I was 19. On coming back, ended up in a relationship, got married at quite a young age, about 22, 23. And it was an abusive relationship, which really killed a lot of who I was at the time and my
Mhm.
took stole my identity. I no longer believed in who I was, but also doing that whilst parenting 2 children. Yeah, parenting 2 children, my eldest daughter and my son. So I have 3 children, one for my second marriage, my more recent marriage. Saying recent, it's going to be 15 years, but more recent marriage. And so it was a challenging time because not only did it affect me, but it affected me as a mother, as
Mhm.
can be expected. So, and as we know, trauma doesn't just affect us, right? Because
Absolutely.
the we experience the trauma and the things that we do and the symptoms of that or what manifests from that also affects those around us. And so it affected how I was as a mother and how I showed up as a mother. And so
Mhm.
I got to a point, Emily, where I was like, you know what, I think that they will actually be better off without me. Because by this time I was having suicidal tendencies. I had a tumor that was being that I had to get removed. And that's another thing that I think manifested because sometimes we don't realize how the things that happen in our life internally manifests outwardly in illnesses and stuff like that. And when I was going through the abuse, even though I had a big family, a very welcoming and helpful family, I didn't tell them what was going on because I felt so ashamed.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure how they would have looked at me, to be saying that I've allowed myself to become somebody else's beating pose. And so that was a, a very, I guess, the catalyst moment for me was actually attempting suicide, not being successful at it, thank God. Um, and then realizing that actually I was robbing my children.
Mhm.
Actually, because at that time, in that moment, you don't think about you removing yourself as being selfish. You actually think you're being selfless because you're saying by removing yourself,
Mhm.
um, you're doing the people that you're leaving behind a favor.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how I saw it because I saw myself as being the problem. And I guess for a lot of people going through abusive relationships, that's one of the things that they tend to tell themselves sometimes that I am the problem, right?
Mhm.
And so that catalyst moment of not actually being successful and
Mhm.
having a switch, like almost a light bulb turned on for me, was extremely powerful. And I told myself that I was going to make sure that I would show up the best version of me for my children, right? And that has really been the journey for me. Like it's helped me to channel in so many different ways because I realize that I'm not only responsible for my life at the moment, I have bear that responsibility for them until they
Yeah.
can be responsible for themselves. And so I started to see myself more as a mirror image of them. When I look at myself, how I react, the question would be if I was the child, would I like what I'm seeing? You
Oh,
know?
that's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Would I like what I'm seeing? And so doing that really helps to channel me and keep me engaged with mamahood and dealing with the traumas of what I went through because it's weird because I believe that my trauma didn't even just start there. It
Hmm.
started even before that because growing up with my grandparents, even though they were absolutely lovely, and now that I've grown up, I cherish it so much more than at that
Hmm.
time. At the time when I was younger, I carried resentment because I was like, why would my mom and my dad leave me? You know, why? Why would they leave me? I felt like the odd one out. And so I used to write letters to my dad that I know would never get posted. I didn't know my dad really until I was 19. I saw him once when I was 10, when I came
Hmm.
back to the UK on holiday. And he came and he looked for me the once and didn't look for me again. And I thought, I felt unloved. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I felt unloved. And the good thing is that I was able to deal with that healing. And
Hmm.
now, my dad and I have an absolutely amazing relationship. And sometimes I'm thinking to myself, how could I have thought that he didn't love me? But I had to explain to him the reason why. And he
Hmm.
understood. And he understood. He was like, giving him the chance to explain to me where he was, it's
Hmm.
helped me look at it from my perspective. Yeah, so for me, I don't believe my mamahood trauma even started just when I became a mom. I think it started even before, because sometimes we have things buried under the surface and we think we have dealt with them, and we
Yes.
haven't. But by becoming a mom, we now realize, hold up, I've been walking with daddy issues. And I didn't
Yeah.
realize I've been working with mommy issues. And so now the table has turned, and now I'm a parent. And I
Hmm.
didn't realize, oh, it's not as easy as how I'm looking at them showing up, because now I'm in the position where I was being, I'm no longer in the position where I can be as judgmental as I was, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Because now I'm not just looking at them from the eyes of a child, I'm now looking at them from also now being in the eye of a parent.
Hmm.
And knowing that parenthood and showing up is not just as easy as we desire. We sometimes, the vision that we create for ourselves as mothers, we would love to be able to shop for that. But unfortunately, sometimes the world doesn't give us that luxury. It doesn't give
Hmm.
us that luxury of wanting to be there for them 24/7 because some of us we have to go out and work or we have to do our business. And so I'm going to touch on that at the symposium about guilt because we go
Yeah.
through that guilt as mothers, right?
Yes.
As parents in general, but I think us as mothers carry a great amount of the guilt where men can switch off. I don't think we as mothers switch off.
No, because we're the nurturer, right? That's
Yeah.
our role, biologically, but also
Yes.
within society. We are the nurturer. And if we're not there to nurture, then that carries with it a lot of guilt.
100%. 100%.
And
It's, yeah.
I think too, the narrative that our society feeds us also
Mm,
plays into that guilt.
definitely. Definitely, because they create this image of what parenting looks like and what motherhood
Mhm.
looks like. And there's no one size fits all package here
Absolutely
for
not.
mom.
No.
Can give tips, and even when I'm going to share, I'll be sharing and I'll be saying that this is what worked for me. I'm not
Mhm.
here to tell you that it's definitely going to work for you because your whole environment might be different. The whole setup of your home and your relationship, it might be
Yeah.
completely different from mine, right? It might not be that you're going through an abusive relationship. It might not be that you don't have a support network. I had a support network, but I didn't tap into it. And so we all have different things. And I think it's very important for us as mothers to, and I'm going to speak about this as well, not compare ourselves. Don't go into this comparison of looking at other mothers and saying, I need to be like that. Or looking at
Yeah.
other parenting relationships and say, my relationship needs to be like that. You're dealing with different children. You deal with different dynamics
Yeah.
completely, right? And so I normally say is very important for us to recognize because in my whole scenario, what then happened was I had a son, I have a son. The reason why I think I'm saying had is because the way he is now as an adult is completely different experience from what I had when he
Hmm.
was a child. And yes, so he had major complex needs in the sense of he has special needs. And it was a very challenging journey between the ages of 2 to let me say around 17.
Hmm.
I went through, I don't even know what to call the journey, battling with schools because they wanted to throw him out. So my son, the first time my son got arrested was at the age of 10.
Oh my goodness.
At the age of 10. And what happened was, so when he transitioned from secondary school, so primary school, they wanted him to go into a special needs school. But I fought for him because there was a lot that the school hadn't put in place. And so they were able to keep him on by the things that I was able to. I sought help. I was going out. I was asking questions. I was getting organizations on board with me. And, by going through that, it helped the school as well because now they have children that have special needs and now they know how to manage those children, whereas before they
Hmm.
didn't.
Hmm.
And so by fighting for that for my son, it helped that school. And so eventually they asked me to come on and be a parent governor to also, I guess, help facilitate conversations between parents and the
Hmm.
teachers because they struggled at the beginning. They didn't have the support. And so I went through that journey, and then my son started secondary school. It was completely different for him. He was majorly overwhelmed. And obviously, being a
Hmm.
secondary school, the support that the children have is a lot less than what a primary school could manage. So my son literally did 1 week in a public secondary school. Then they sent him to a smaller school, and it was for children that had special behavioral needs.
Hmm.
And so he got angry. His nan passed away. His paternal nan passed away, and I don't think he was in the best of places. And I think he lashed out. Yeah, he lashed out at something that happened. Literally, he demolished the class, Emily. Like computers went flying, everything went flying. At that stage, he didn't like anyone touching him. He didn't like to be touched and stuff like this. The school did know this, but they hadn't put stuff in place. Later on, they did. They had like a soft room that he could go in to release his anger and all of that. But what then happened is the school was very close to a police station. They called the police. What did the police come and do? They came and they restrained him. And
Which would
oh,
send his nervous system over the edge. Poor kid.
completely edge. And he bit the police officer. And
Nervous
I
system
laugh.
response.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and so they arrested him at the age of 10. And it was just very traumatic.
Yeah.
I remember being at the station for the whole day. At that time, he was very particular in how he ate and what he ate. You couldn't put gravy on his food. He didn't eat any other meat apart from chicken, and it had to be a chicken leg, and he would just nibble the brown bits off at the end and leave the white bits. So he was in there for the whole day. He was hungry.
Hmm.
Had no food, had no medication. And that was when you think about it, being a mother, being a parent in general, seeing your child go through that at the age of 10, like it rips your heart out.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, no, it totally rips your heart out. And so I've gone through like so many different scenarios of this type of issue. And I can't put words. I still try to put words to the journey. I can't
Hmm.
because to share all that happened, it would take a day. You
Yeah.
know what I'm And it was pain. And I think that's
Hmm.
why I speak a lot about the power of a mother's heart
Hmm.
because be there. You have to smile even when you want to cry. You have to show up even when you feel like you want to give up. Even when people are looking at you and you're out on that street and people are looking at you and they start to judge you and
Hmm.
label you as a bad parent when they don't even know what's really happening. My son used to not have filters, and I remember pulling up to the petrol station one day and a lady passed and he just shouted out the window, "Hi, sweet fat mama." And I thought, Emily, And my mouth
Oh
drew,
my.
and the lady came over and she laid into me. And I just remember saying sorry. I
Oh,
didn't give her an explanation because I've realized at times that people giving an explanation, it doesn't make any sense because unless they're living it, they have no clue. Yeah,
exactly.
no clue. And so when I see a child lashing out, my first thought is not, oh, that parent must be a bad parent. I have actually no clue, what they're experiencing or what that child is experiencing. And so that's one thing that I definitely would like to encourage anybody that is like watching this podcast to just be mindful of doing that. And sometimes,
Yeah.
reach out to the olive branch because you don't know that parent might just want to hear somebody just come and say it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes a whole lot of difference. Just it's going to be
Those
okay.
those three words are so powerful
Hmm.
to a
Hmm.
mama who is trying her best
Yeah,
and it feels like everything is working against her. The last thing that she needs is you coming up to her and laying into her because you think she's the worst mom ever.
exactly. So it I've had that experience and I'm glad that I can use that experience to also bless and help others and encourage them and tell them like, listen, this is not where your bus stop is. Yeah, this is not where the journey ends,
Hmm.
right? End of the journey. And you're gonna have up and down moments. You're gonna be asking yourself questions like, am I a good mother? Yes, we're gonna ask those questions. And sometimes the answer that comes back at us is no. But the thing is, what scale are you measuring yourself on? To say,
Exactly.
okay, it's a good mama scale, is a bad mama scale. Oh, I'm somewhere in the middle. But who says? Because all children come with different needs. I have three children. My eldest is 23, my son is now 21, and my youngest is 13. And they all come with their different ways, the
Hmm.
different expectations of me as a mother. So the way that I showed up for my 23-year-old now, I can't show up for my 13-year-old in that way. And the way I show up for my 13-year-old, I can't show up for my 21-year-old. They all have different needs. They all have different expectations, right? And my journey with all of them is different. And it's not about favoritism or anything like that. It's just our journey has been different. I remember there was a time when my eldest daughter felt not seen because I
Hmm.
was in meetings 24/7 with my son. And at one point, she started to act up because she was like, maybe this is what I'm going to have to do in order to get the attention of my mom, to get the attention of my
Hmm.
parents, right? And when I was able to put language on that, then I was able to know how to navigate it.
Hmm.
But it's a lot of me work as well. And I think that's one thing that moms have to do. Don't stop from doing your me work and putting your me work in the calendar because in order to, how long can you pour from an empty cup? I have my bottle of water here. I won't show the name because I'm not advertising, right? But I'm going to be drinking it all throughout the day. Whether I like it or not, it's going to finish, right?
Hmm.
Unless I go and get another bottle or refill, I have nothing to pour out from it.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something us as mothers need to make sure we do. We need to make sure that as well as we're pouring out to our children, and sometimes it's not just our children alone, because of that nurturing factor, sometimes even our partner becomes our child. Because of that nurturing factor, everybody else becomes first priority,
Yeah.
whether it be work, at church, in your business, at church, other people becomes your main priority. And so what keeps happening is you keeps getting bumped off the list.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're going to get to a point where you're going to realize, hold on, I've poured out so much, there's nothing left. And I'm working on empty. And then we get the burnouts. And then we still want to pour for the children, but the pot is on fire now because there's nothing more in there. It's all burnt out, right? And sometimes we don't start to pay attention to it until we hear the fire alarm go off. Smoke starts to fill the room internally, right? And we break down.
Hmm.
And so that's something that I've had to learn on my journey, that as much as I'm
Yeah.
helping my children to work on themselves, I have to help me by working on me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something that I've had to learn as well because I've 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 had a habit of self-neglect.
Mm,
because everybody else is more important than me.
yeah. Mm.
And when I get into that habit of neglecting myself, then I start to resent everybody else, and it's not their fault. It's me. It's me neglecting myself. And so I have to check myself and be like, "Whoa, Em, chill.
Mm, that's
Have a
so true.
shower. Take care of yourself,
Oh my
and then
God.
everybody else will be fine."
It's so true. Like people don't get it. Like I say all the while, I say, I've had clients before that have said, oh, I don't know how to, I really want to start business, but I don't know anything about business management. I'm like, are you being for real? You've just told me that you have 4 children and you're saying you don't know anything about business management. And I say that one of the greatest managers in the world are mothers.
Hmm.
The greatest managers are mothers. And why I say that is because you're managing time. You're managing time when you are saying, okay, I'm going to juggle feeding the baby, putting them to sleep so that I can go and have a bath, so that I can then go and cook the dinner, so that I can clean up the house. Oh, yeah, and then I have to go and do school run and the meetings, and I'm doing emails in response to emails that have been sent to me as a parent. And you say that you know nothing about managing. The only difference is in there is that you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
You're not getting paid money, right? But apart from that, you are managing, right? And it's and the difference is, I know somebody may say, but yeah, but it's money. Hold on. Money is not greater than life. You're managing life, right? You have the life of somebody in your hands. You're managing life, right? You could lose money and still end up replacing it.
Yeah.
But when you lose a life, right? It's completely different. And so we are great managers because of our experiences, even managing the state of our emotions when we've gone through traumatic ordeals, right? It's being able to manage the state of our emotions. I was able, let me share this with you. So I didn't even do the connection before. When I now had my third child, Alicia, and health issues was coming up, I was able to manage my state a whole lot more.
Hmm.
One from obviously, yes, a spiritual level. I'm a Christian, so I believe in not writing off situations in my head before I've seen it finalized. I believe in things happening for a reason. I believe that being frantic is not going to resolve the issue. I didn't understand that before. So when I had my first child, I wasn't aware that sometimes when they're just born, they're going to just be pooing a lot. And poo is just going to come out, be running out. Yeah. And
Yep.
so in the hospital, she wasn't, I've been blessed to not have children that cried when they were babies. And
Oh,
so I'm in the labor ward and I'm hearing all of these babies crying. And I'm lying there peacefully while my baby's sleeping. And then my baby wakes up around like 1 a.m. and her nappy needs changing. And whilst I'm changing her nappy, ooh, all of this green poo is just running out. And I remember rushing to the, running out of the room, running to go and look for a midwife. Something's wrong with my baby. Something's wrong with my baby. And she comes and she starts to laugh and she's like, no, it's natural, right? So when that happens with the second child, obviously I'm now aware,
hmm.
right? So I went through that traumatic ordeal because it was traumatic because I thought my baby was dying.
Hmm.
Now when it happens the second time, I now know, okay, yeah, that's normal. Yeah. But then when other things start to happen with him, and then I'm getting traumatic. Because so with my son's case, um, there was like I was in labor for hours,
Hmm.
then started to poo, and then he started to take in his poo, which
Oh,
then made
okay.
him. So they had to do a cesarean, emergency cesarean. And whilst we were in the hospital, he was making funny sounds. And my nan, God just made it that my nan was admitted in hospital that same week. And where my nan was a ward on top of the labor ward. So she was like, my nan was this determined, strong woman. And they were like, no, you can't go down and see the baby. And she's like, it's either you wheel me down there or I'm going to make my way. So a nurse wheeled her down and she came to look for me, look for the baby. And she was like, this baby doesn't sound right. And, normally some babies are born with a lot of mucus. And so they make a little wheezing sound. The doctors were saying that's what it is. And she was like, no, my nan used to be a nurse before. And she was like, no, something's wrong with this baby. And she told me, she said, Michelle, get a doctor to see the baby. The doctor came down, said, oh, he's fine. No, sorry, a nurse came down and said, oh, no, he's fine. The doctor won't need to come. He won't need to come till when he's signing you guys off to go home. My nan came back down that afternoon and she asked me, and I said, no, they said the doctor doesn't need to see him. And she told them, listen, I don't know what you're going to do to get the doctor here, but I am not leaving here until the doctor comes and sees this baby. And she really didn't. When they realized that she was serious, a doctor came. When they came, they literally had to rush him to ICU immediately
Oh my
because
goodness.
he had taken poo and he was infected and it was poisoning him. Yeah. And so he ended up being in an incubator. And so obviously going through all of that, and you see that happening when it was time, I'm telling you, I've had some work with my children. When it was now my third child, and then came out of the hospital, she was a big baby, started to just lose weight rapidly. The midwife came
No.
and said, okay, yes, some babies lose weight. She'll keep an eye on it. Her second trip, she was like, no, we need to get this baby checked. Baby's losing too much weight. Went to do the 6-week checkup at the GP, at the doctor's. And then he said to me, did they check her when she was being discharged? I was like, yeah, they did. She had a massive hole in her heart.
Oh my goodness.
She had a massive hole in her heart. And they obviously did a check, but they didn't listen to her heart because the doctor was like, there is no way they could have listened to her heart and not hear this because the blood was gushing back and forward through this massive hole. And so when that time came, it was almost like, Michelle, you're reliving an experience, but it's a different child and it's a different type of experience, but it's the same one.
Mhm.
So you have to have faith and you have to trust that as just as your son was okay and he's here, that she's going to be okay. And I share that to say the image now, my daughter's absolutely fine. They wanted to operate. I keep getting different doctors saying different things. In the end, they didn't operate. Then they would say, okay, we're going to operate. And then they didn't operate. Now she's 13. They didn't have to operate and that hole closed on itself by itself, right? And I say that to say, as a parent, sometimes what we see happening in front of us with our children,
Mhm.
it's our hearts turn and we wish different for them and we hope, oh, we don't want it to be this way. Oh, he's not the scholar that I wanted him to be. Oh, they all have their own journeys. And it's just
Absolutely.
tap into that faith and say to yourself, I'm going to be here for my child no matter what. I'm going to show up as the best version of me, and I'm going to do what it takes to help them show up as the best version of themselves. But guess what? They are going to make mistakes. They are going to
Mhm.
go through their own challenges. And it's just us for how to have faith and believe that what we're seeing right now in their story is not the end of their story. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That word is just for any mother that may be going through certain things with their children, whatever age group they fall into. Once somebody's alive, I just always believe that once a person is alive, that's not the end of their story.
No, no, that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
That's just the beginning. And so, in order for us to show up and be the best version of ourselves, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to strengthen our self-compassion muscle and not beat ourselves up.
Definitely.
And don't forget what it was like to be a kid.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah,
That is,
don't like you have that experience in your back pocket. You can remember what it was like to be a kid and how you felt when adults didn't listen to you or adults threw big scary temper tantrums because they couldn't regulate their own emotions. Like
no,
think of these things.
so true. I had to say that to my husband once, because I'm like, are you forgetting what you used to do when you were a child? or when you were younger, some of the stories that you've told me, you know what I'm
Mm,
saying? Because we tend to forget, and I do get it, because we've now stepped into the role of this responsible superhero figure that we forget what it's like to be a child and
yeah.
to enjoy those moments with our children. You know, one of the things that I battled with when I was growing up with my grandparents is that I didn't have anybody to talk to when I was going through various different things. My nan didn't know that when I started my menstrual cycle, my nan didn't know till a year later. I knew what to do because I was a bookhead. Like I loved reading. So I was always reading and always learning. So I knew what to do. And obviously they taught me in schools, but my nan had no clue. When my nan found out, I was like to her, yeah, but I'm a year in, right?
Mm,
And I always said, I don't want that for my children because I've had some experiences that I couldn't even voice to my nan. I remember
yeah.
at one point having a close family friend that was called like uncle masturbating in front of me. And my nan didn't know. I was so afraid as a child that I thought maybe if I say it, I'm going to be blamed.
Yeah.
So I had to hold it and not say, and I said to myself, I would never ever want my children to be in that position. So
Absolutely.
be a voice of yes, authority, be a voice, yes, of correction, but also be a voice of escape, a place that they know that I can come and speak to my parents safely. My children can speak to me about anything.
Hmm.
Anything. Sometimes my husband gets worried about it. He's and I'm like, no, because guess what? You see, if they don't speak to me, they're going to speak to somebody else, and that other person may give them the wrong advice. So I would prefer if they come to me, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know that I give them the advice from a place of love, right? And so what you said is just so bang on. Like, don't forget that you were once a child before you became a parent.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Michelle, so much for sharing your journey with us and a bit of your story. And I cannot wait to hear what you have to share at the symposium. If you are someone who's listening right now and you have not yet registered for the symposium, click on the link in the show notes. Join us. It's a free event, unless you choose to get forever access to the replay. And even then, that's only $7, so it's practically free. Um, and yeah, it's just going to be such an amazing, powerful event, and we've got amazing women like Michelle here to share their journeys, their obstacles, their victories, because we are not the sum of our trauma. We are so much more than that. And thank you so much for sharing your journey of reclaiming your voice and becoming an advocate for yourself and your children. And I just feel so honored to have you on the show. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You for doing this because guess what? Mamas need it. So well
Mhm.
done. Keep up the work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune in to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. If you would like more of the Mamahood After Trauma community, make sure to look in the description of this episode for the link to become a Mamahood After Trauma Inner Circle member. Until next time, Mama, keep